Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online character build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, I bring you the Druidic Knight. Now, before I get started, disclaimer, this is a roleplay, casual play build. It is not meant for meta play. Now, to get into the story behind the Druidic Knights, they are knights of nature. And what it is they are protectors, or not protectors, they are knights of nature. They're basically druid knights. And they choose to be warriors of their nature spirits, or their more of the divine nature. And they protect the innocent that live in the woods, that live in the forests of Tamriel, or live in the wastelands. They basically are covenant knights to different orders too, so they could be of the weird, they could be of the different clans like that, like nature clans, and they can also be guardians and protectors of different sections of natural things in the forest. If you guys have ever played through Malabal Tor, there's a whole quest line where you meet these like druidic people and these water spirits, or these different spirits, and you play through this quest line, and it's only one quest in the whole area like this, and it's very nature thematic type quest. This is where this character would fit in really well, as in those kind of stories, as somebody who's trying to bring order to the realm of nature and out of the chaos that's being brought upon the world of Tamriel. So it's really cool. I like the idea, and I thought it fit really well with the Warden. So, yes, it is a Warden. And its primary role is damage dealer. Of course, it is a heavy armor build. It can be a tank and a healer if need be. And I'll show you guys how you can do that. But let's go ahead and jump into the character. With this particular one, I chose a Nord, because my primary, one of my main Warden characters on live is a Nord character. Usually I play them as the Northern Wind, but after messing with this, I hate to say that I might be switching roles, guys. Because after messing with this, I had a lot of fun with this setup. And if anyone remembers my old Death Knight type nature build, this is kind of that, but it's been reformatted to fit more in line with the Druid Ranger kind of. If there was a Druid Ranger or a Fighter Druid Ranger combination, this would be it. Okay, and it fits really well. Like I said, it fits really well into that theme or idea of a Druidic Knight. I did a lot of research on Druidic Knights to find out more about them. They're really cool in their kind of conceptual idea of what they people came up with, and I thought that this really fit, especially with the way this Nord character's story was. See, originally my Nord character was raised by, was found by orcs when her family was out hunting in the north, on the edge of basically Skyrim and Hrothgar. They were hunting in the mountains there, and they got jumped by a pack of ogres, and the ogres just wiped out, just decimated her family, and she escaped and wandered through the woods for a long time and ended up on the edge of Hrothgar, where she was found by a shamanic orc who took her in and raised her alongside the person who later became her brother, Bronzic, Stormclaw. And the two of them were raised together, and they were raised and taught the ways of nature and how they can manipulate the ways of nature and use it towards this power that they had. One was more arcane, sorcerer, and one was more nature, warding. So that's where the ideas of my two characters came from, an orc sorcerer and this character. They like I said, they were raised together, so I thought it was really cool. But enough of that, let's move on. So if you want to play this character as damage dealer, we're going to put 64 points into stamina. This way you can have that high max stamina pool for higher damage output. Now, our If you want to play this as a tank, you're going to put as much into health to give you 30k health, the rest into stamina. Nords play really well into this build because of the fact they get that high survivability and stuff, but any race can play this. That includes Breton, that includes Argonians, that includes Dark Elves. Any race can play this. In fact, Dark Elves would fit really good into the theme of, you know, the nomads that live on the one side of Vardenfell, that are the Redoran. I think it's the Redoran. That live on the one side of Vardenfell, that are like nomadic people that hunted the big crabs and stuff. This is where they would fit in for the Dark Elves. But moving on to now healer role. They can play healers. You would take everything out of stamina, put it into magicka, but only enough to get you around 30k. The rest back into stamina. Because with the way this character plays, you would be using both magicka and stamina healing. Alright. Excuse me. I'm going to do it again. Sorry, guys. I woke up this morning with a bad case of allergies. And I've already taken 4 allergy pills to try and calm it down. And it's kicking my butt. Alright. Moving on. As you can see, with 64 points in stamina, we do have 17k magicka, 24k health, 33k max stam. Our magic recovery is coming in at 934, health recovery is coming in at 397, and our stam recovery is coming in at 864. Don't stress the low stam recovery for this build, because there is things that you can do to keep your resources managed well in group dynamics and in non-group dynamics. Well, like in group play and everything else. So we do have a 2,649 weapon damage with an 1,806 spell damage. We do have 28% spell critical with a 37% weapon critical. We also have 23k spell resist with a 22k physical resist, and this is unbuffed. So I'm going to show you guys just real quick the weapon damage and spell crit, or weapon crit, when you're buffed up. So okay, where's my, oh, I don't have that one. So this is what weapon damage is going to look like, and as you can see, spell damage also goes up, and then our crit does go up as well, because we use the spell power pot, or the stamina power pots, and we go to 47% crit. Here on the back bar we go to 52 with a 28% spell critical. Excuse me. So this is really good for when we're playing damage dealer. We don't need much higher than 47%. We actually go a little bit above that, but you don't really need that much more. Moving on to the Mundus Stone, we are using the Thief Mundus Stone as a damage dealer. You can use other Mundus Stones if you want, like the Lover, or even the Warrior, but you're not going to have as much critical output. So, if you're playing PvP, I use the Lover Mundus Stone, mainly because it does a lot better for damage output. And then, if I'm playing a tank, I don't even use the Lady Mundus Stone. Most of the time I'll use like the Atronach Mundus Stone, or I even just continue to use the Thief Mundus Stone even when I'm tanking, and then or the Lord. One of those three. If I'm playing the healer, Atronach Mundus Stone, or the Apprentice Mundus Stone to boost my spell damage. Alright, moving on to the rest of the character. We have Tri-Stat Food. This is to give us increased health, max magic, and max stamina at all times. We want those higher resource pools so we can pull from any of those effective fields. So both magicka and stamina. Moving on to gear, or to skill. Gear. To gear. Sorry again. Moving on to gear. Taking a look at our potions. We use tripods for when we're tanking. We use spell power pots for when we're healing. And we use the stamina power pots for when we're playing DPS. Now moving on, we do use the Tri-Stat Food. We do not use Witch Mother's Potent Brew or Hunting or Dubious Cameron Throne with this at all. We use this. Alright, now that I've shown you guys this stuff, let's go over the gear set, starting with our first set, the monster set. And that is done with Selene. Selene's is a very powerful set for this build because 1 piece gives you max stamina, 2 piece, when you deal direct melee damage, you have a 15% chance to call on a primal spirit that mauls the closest enemy in front of you after 1.3 seconds for 17,400 physical damage. This effect can occur once every 4 seconds. It's pretty much firing off a lot. And you're going to see this bear form just rah, rah. It's pretty cool. And it really fits the theme of this. Now the next set we're using, you guys probably already guessed, Hunting's Rage. This is to give us that high weapon damage, or high weapon crit on the 2-piece and 4-piece. The 3-piece gives you more stamina, and then the 5-piece adds more weapon damage. This makes you overall really effective as a damage dealer and as a tank. So it kind of allows you to kind of play around with both sides. So even if you're playing this character as a damage dealer, you get that high damage output. When you're playing this character more of a tank, you get that high survivability plus those resources to help boost and aid your allies with the heals that you have, because some of your heals are weapon damage based. Now moving on to the jewelry set and weapons. This next set is something most people have not seen used in the game, and that is called Bark Skin. Bark Skin is a really interesting set because in Dungeons and Dragons, Bark Skin is a spell you cast on yourself that basically makes you more physical resistant. It boosts your armor class, and it makes it harder for enemies to hit you because it makes your skin like bark. So this kind of fits into that theme where it gives you the 2-piece is max health, 3-piece is stamina recovery, 4-piece is physical resistance, and then the 5-piece reduces the duration of immobilization and snares applied to you by 50%. When an immobilize or snare is applied to you, heal for X amount of health and restore stamina. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds. So every time that one of these is applied to you, you get 50% snare reduction, which reduces the effectiveness of it by 50%, but you also get another 4% from one of the pieces of armor you wear. So you actually have a 54% reduced immobilization effectiveness, and it really plays well with this and the idea where you heal and restore stamina because you're using your druidic powers basically. So I really like this set. Now let's go over every enchant and trait, and I'm going to do this really quick. So the way this armor set is set up by type, the helm is medium, the belt is light, all other pieces are heavy, and this is so you can maximize your resistance survivability as a knight. Now going over the enchants, the smaller pieces are all divines with max stamina. This is so you can maximize your stamina pool and your Mundus Stone use in this role. So you can take advantage of Mundus Stones and the higher stamina pool. Now on the bigger pieces, on the helm and leggings we are using Invigorating. This is to increase our mag and stamina recovery because we have no way of really doing that in heavy armor. So we want to take advantage of it with this character type by using this Invigorating on our heavy armor so we can get just a little bit more out of our recovery ratings. And then our chest is Reinforced. The reason we use Reinforced is to increase the armor value of this one piece of heavy armor. This is the heaviest piece of armor you can have in the game. Or not heaviest, but the most resistant piece of armor type you can have in the game, which is your heavy chest. So if you make it Reinforced, it will give you the maximum resistance value out of all your armor pieces. So we always do this if we can. If you're doing a medium armor build with all 5 body medium drop pieces, then use the helm heavy with that. If you're doing a light build, same thing. Make sure the helm is heavy and it's Reinforced. So on the bigger pieces, we also use Tristat, and this allows us to hybridize our character into any of the 3 roles: tank, healer, damage. Moving on to jewelry, we are using 2 tri-rune rings of bark skin. with weapon damage on them. The reason we do this is so we can maximize our weapon damage output, since we are primarily melee damage characters, or not melee, but physical damage characters, and physically based. We're based more on stamina than we are magicka. And then on our necklace, we do use a mag recovery. And the reason we use mag recovery is because we do use some magic ability skills. And we want to take advantage of having that mag recovery when we're playing like different roles, like tank, healer, that kind of stuff. So that's why we have this here. And then moving on to the weapons. We have our first weapon, our main hand weapon, which is a Nirnhoned Barkskin Battle Axe. This Nirnhoned weapon increases the damage of the weapon by 15%. Now that's 1806. It goes from 15 something to 18 something. Now that 1800 and something damage applies to both physical and spell damage. Now it only applies to the light and heavy attack, physical side, and your abilities on physical side. When it comes to magic, any magic ability you activate is going to get that spell damage based on this weapon. Alright, moving on to the next weapon. We are using a Barkskin Bow. And this one is infused with a weapon and spell damage enchant. This is the way we can maximize our spell capability and our physical capability and damage. Primarily our physical. Our magic side is more for supporting ourselves and our allies with heals and stuff when we're playing healer, but we can still use it in some cases for the magicka side to also bring a little bit of damage. So and you guys will see that when we do the parse. So that is the gear. We're going to move on to skills now, starting with the class skills and passives. So with the class, I always, myself, personally now, take the ultimate, every active ability, and passive of every skill line. This way I can take advantage of this character in all three roles, regardless. Tank, healer, and damage dealer. Because it depends on how I play the character, will depend on how I effectively use them in different scenarios. So like if I'm playing this character as a tank, I'm going to use more of the Winter Embrace line. If I'm going to play him a healer, I'm going to use more of the Green Balance. If I'm going to play him as a damage dealer like they are, I'm going to use more of the Animal Spirit or Animal Companion. And I do take advantage of every passive and active ability. Now moving on, primary weapons, two-handed. So you do take the ultimate and active abilities because again, you never know when you might need them. And same thing with bow. We take the passives, active abilities, and ultimate here as well, so we can take advantage of them in different scenarios. Alright. You can learn other weapon types. As you can see, I do have 100 skill points left over. I actually have more than that if you take out of the crafting stuff that this character has. I have like 122 or more, and you can take advantage of that in your character to use other weapons. Moving on to armor. Light armor passive, since we do wear one piece of light armor, we do take advantage of all three of these. With spell warding, we get that increased spell resistance from the light armor. Evocation gives you increased mag recovery by 4%, reduced magic cost by 2%, and we also get grace. Reduces the effectiveness of snares applied to you by 4% for each piece of light armor, and they also reduce the cost of sprint. That 4% stacks with that 50% you get from the bark skin. Medium armor, we do use the top two and the bottom one. We do take advantage of all these guys, okay? And then we are heavy armor build, so we take all of these. Now, I do take the active ability for heavy armor with this character because I do use this when I play certain content or I play a certain way. Next up, Soul Magic. We do take advantage of the ultimate active ability and passives here. You don't have to take the ultimate active ability or the first passive if you don't want to. I've found that they work really well in different situations. So, guild skills, Fighters Guild, we do take advantage of all the Fighters Guild passives and ultimate and active abilities, all that stuff, so we can use them. Same thing with Mages Guild, Sigic Order, and with the Undaunted line. Undaunted is very important because these are all considered synergies, And then the two passives play into you, allowing your character to have greater resource management with Undaunted Command, and greater health, magic, and stamina pools with Undaunted Metal. And that's the other reason why we wear 5 heavy, 1 light, 1 medium. Moving on to Alliance War, Assault. I take the ultimate and active abilities and passives and Assault and Support that best reflect my ability to play my character in PvE, because that's where I mostly play. When I do play PvP, I don't change this stuff. I don't add anything to it or anything. I just leave it as is and play. What I do is I change my CP loadout. When it comes to support, ultimate, the 2 skills and the 1 passive is what I use in PvE. Nord skills, I am a Nord with this. They are very good with this. They get the Resist Frost, which increases their max health by 1,000. They get the cold resistance, and they gain immunity to chilled status effects. They also get Stalwart, which increases their max stamina by 1,500, and they gain ultimate whenever they take damage. And they can do that every 10 seconds. And then they get Rugged, which increases their physical and spell resist by 3960. Excuse me. Crafting, Alchemy, Medicinal Use, very good passive, because when using potions, resulting effects last 30% longer. This is primarily for when you're playing in Dungeons and Trials. I use potions in Overland that are like generic potions. When I'm playing in Dungeons and Trials, I use the more expensive potions to boost my character's ability to play in that environment. Provisioning, Gourmand, and Connoisseur. Both of these are really important as well. Gourmand adds 20 minutes to the duration of eating food, and Connoisseur adds 20 minutes to any duration of any consumable drink. So, really good for that purpose. Now, going over our skills. Starting with the first skill, we do have Wrecking Blow. This hits an enemy for X amount of damage. It also grants you Empower for 5 seconds, increasing your damage of your next light attack by 40%. Then we have Cutting Dive. This one, you summon a Cliff Racer that bombs out of the air, dealing X amount of damage. It can hit really hard, too. Next, we have Brawler. This is an ability you use. It hits multiple targets, so it's like a minor AoE. But when you hit with it, it gives you a damage shield for 6 seconds, and each enemy hit increases your damage shield strength by 50%. It's very, very powerful. Next, we have Subterranean Assault. Now, this one, you stir up a group of Shulks to attack after 3 seconds, dealing X amount of poison damage to the enemies in front of you. Each enemies' damage are inflicted with Major Fracture, reducing their physical resistance by 5,280 for 6 seconds. This, you're pretty much going to want to keep up as much as possible so you can keep that applied. Usually what I do is I start on, when I go to the front bar, I go through this, I hit this, and by the time this fires, I go back and I do this stuff. Now, another thing you can do is you can swap these 2 abilities around, so you go this, then Shulks, then Brawler, then this. By the time this hits, this thing's fired. So it'll go boom, bam, and it does a lot of damage. Then when you're spamming this, you get that. Before you swap bars, drop another Shulks, go to the back bar, do your rearming trap, which we'll go over in a second. So, Bird of Prey. This is basically for while slotted. You can also use it to give you Major Expedition to help you move better in combat. It does cost Magicka, but while slotted you gain Minor Berserk, increasing your damage done by 8%. Moving on to the last ability, our ultimate, we have Flawless Stonebreaker. This does a good amount of damage up front, a good amount of damage over time, and then while slotted, your weapon damage is increased by 5%. This is really nice. Moving on to the back bar, we have, and I have the wrong ability there. I was testing out tanking. Alright. Moving on to the back bar, we have Rearming Trap. Now this sets a trap at a location after 1.5 seconds. It can be triggered, and when it triggered, it deals X amount of damage up front, X amount of damage over 6 seconds, immobilizes the enemy for 6 seconds, and it only applies to one enemy, guys. So when it applies this to an enemy, if that enemy can be immobilized, they will be for 6 seconds. It also grants you Minor Force, increasing your critical damage done by 10%. After being triggered, the trap resets and can be triggered one more time. So you roughly get about 12 seconds of Minor Force. So you'll be casting this pretty much every time you're on the back bar. Next ability we have is called Venom Arrow. Now this does X amount of damage up front, X amount of damage over 10 seconds, and if an enemy is hit casting an ability, they are interrupted, set off balance, and stunned for 3 seconds. I like this ability for some reason, especially on knights. Moving on to Arrow Barrage. This one you do X amount of damage over time for 8 seconds, dealing every 0.5 second for 8 seconds. So this thing hits a total of 10 times, I think it is, or I don't know, it's a lot. But it hits a lot, and it does X amount of damage every 0.5 seconds for the 8 seconds. Next ability we have here a floater ability. I like to use this Fletcher Infection. It unleashes a swarm of Fletcher flies that relentlessly attack, dealing X amount of damage, magic damage over 10 seconds, and then every second cast of this ability deals 50% more damage. Now, if you can time it right, you can actually get this to fire off before it ends, and you can get this to reapply at a greater amount of damage. So it's really nice. Next ability we have is Bold Niche. Now we use this for the stamina resource return. It also gives us major brutality and major sorcery, increasing both spell and weapon damage by 20%. This is also why we use it. Last but not least is our primary ultimate we will use, and that is Permafrost. This one, you summon a twisted violent storm around you, dealing X amount of frost damage every second for 8 seconds to enemies around you, reducing their movement speed by 40%. You and nearby allies gain major protection, reducing your damage taken by 30%. Damaging an enemy 3 times in the storm will stun them for 3 seconds. This is why we use this ultimate. It's a really great kind of protection skill plus this ability to reduce damage or stun the enemy, but it also reduces incoming damage and it deals damage. So it's a really nice ultimate that you can get out quite quick. And that is the skills for the Druidic Knight. Now we're going to go over the CP, starting with the Red Tree. In the Red Tree we have 56 in Ironclad. This reduces damage taken from direct damage attacks by 20%. We have 38 in the Spell Shield, increasing your spell resistance by 30 to 50, and that's because we have that one piece of armor that gives us higher physical resist. Moving on, we have 31 in the Thick Skin, reducing your damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. 43 in the Hardy, reducing your damage taken from physical poison disease damage by 10%. 43 in the Elemental Defender, reducing damage taken from Flame, Frost, Shock, and Magic damage by 10%. And then moving on over here, we have 40 in the Bastion, increasing the effectiveness of your damage shields by 16%. 19 in the Quick Recovery, increasing your healing received by 5%. Moving on, we have 40 in the Warlord, reducing the cost to break free by 16%. 16 in the Sprinter, reducing your sprint cost by 10%. 16 in the Bashing Focus, reducing your bash cost by 10%. And then moving on over here, we do have 75 in the Mooncalf, increasing your stam recovery by 14%. 43 in its Tenacity, increasing your stam and magic return or fully charged heavy attacks by 10%. Don't stress too much about the Magicka stuff. It's more stamina based, so. 40 in the Tumbling, reducing your dodge roll cost by 16%. 40 in the Shadow Word, reducing your block cost by 16%. And then moving on into here, we do have 43 in the Blessed. This increases your healing done by 15%. Or 10%, sorry. Moving on to the Middle Tree, 35 in the Physical Weapon Expert. This increases your light and heavy attack damage done with two-handed, one-handed, and shield, dual-wield, bow weapons, and werewolf form by 20%. We also have 40 in the Master in Arms. This increases your direct damage done by 16%. This allows you to unlock Retaliation, Reposit, and Butcher, which all allow you to boost your damage in different forms. Next up, onto the final Blue Tree, we have 56 in the Mighty. This increases physical poison disease damage by 12%. 56 in the Precise Strikes, increasing critical damage, critical healing with stamina abilities by 20%. And then 40 in the Thaumaturge, which increases your damage done with damage over time effects by 16%. This just makes you an overall more effective damage dealer. Now, that you guys have seen that. I'm going to go ahead and do two quick parse runs against this minor thing here. And this is basically to represent your damage in a dungeon, normal and veteran, to some degree. And then that one up there is to represent your damage again in an organized group. So we're going to go ahead and drink our potion, do our little buff here, drop our trap beast, go through the rotation. I'm doing the wrong button here. Alright, so we did about 18k. If you swap those two around, these two, you can probably get to about 24k DPS, because shulks will be up while you're spamming this most of the time. So we'll swap for this next one, and this way you guys can see what this looks like in this scenario. So what we're going to do to this guy is we are going to wait for a potion cooldown. We're going to do the same process, but this time we're going to go ahead and activate our Netch first. Potion. Usually I can get about 30k out of this. Yeah, but about 30k, 32k DPS, somewhere around there. It's a really fun build though. I like it because it does make me feel more nature based in my ability to play this character, unlike it would normally. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some adjustments real quick so we can play this more solo friendly inside of a dungeon environment. Now the only thing we're going to be changing is a heal. So we're going to be changing the back bar to have a heal right here. And we're going to grab the green balance, green lotus. Now this is anytime we deal light attack or heavy attack damage, we heal. We also get major savagery, increasing our weapon critical by 2191 for the duration. And we're going to keep everything else as is for solo play. And the reason why is because you get a ridiculous amount of damage shields with Brawler. So you don't really need a lot. Just hitting Brawler every so often will give you a very nice shield. It's not a massive shield, but it's enough. We're talking about like 7k normally, and like 12k to 20 something k depending on how many enemies you can hit. Like the biggest I've ever gotten a shield was like 28k, or was it 32? I don't remember, but I had like 52,000 in shields on my Templar character. So all right. Sorry about that. Moving on to the encounters. So we're going to go ahead and buff up here. And you guys are going to notice I'm not even using a resistance buff. And the reason I'm not is because I'm a Nord. They really don't need it. Alright, now we're going to move on into this room. And in here, I'm going to show you guys what the Northern Storm would look like in here, so you guys can see for yourselves. It's actually quite brutal. Because the ultimates, by the way, they scale off of your highest stat. So always off your primary stat. So whatever you're using, they're going to scale off of. Now here, I'm going to change out the Lotus for Vigor, because I know that this guy will mess me up if I don't have a better heal. So and I'm going to go ahead and pop it once. Get my potion going. And I had somebody ask me the other day, they were like, Sherman, I was watching your video and you weren't using abilities in like an order. When I solo play, it's more of an active reactive play style because you've got to be that way. When you're solo playing, you can't play like you normally would in a dungeon scenario because you are playing to be solo proficient. So this is the other reason why I like that permafrost, is because it gives you that 30% damage reduction, and it just works out really well because it lasts for, you know, so many seconds. So it's just really nice. And you guys should know what's coming next, right? I'm gonna die. I'm gonna do it on purpose. Kill me. He's gonna smash me. Boom. Alright. So we're gonna Way Shrine. And I just do that so I can show you guys the effectiveness of this. This thing I could have soloed this whole dungeon with. I know this character build really well, and I know how well it can work. The other thing that's nice about having that reduced immobilization effect with the bark skin is even in dungeons like this, you can take advantage of it because some of the enemies will hit you with like slows, they'll hit you with snares, they'll hit you with things like that which immobilize and snare you, which gives you that healing plus that stamina return, which is really nice. So that's why I kind of like this set. I know it seems like a generic set because a lot of people are like, oh, it's cheesy, but it's actually really good. So, but that is pretty much it for the Druidic Knight. I hope you guys like it and enjoy it. If you do, you guys know what's coming next. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.